Okay, so we've all had a day to calm down a little bit after we got that gameplay for Marvel's Spider-Man 2 yesterday. And now that we've chilled out, I've had an opportunity, like I'm sure many of you at home, to watch that gameplay over and over and over and over again. And there were some things that people missed, you know, some Easter eggs in there, some hints to some story beats, potential side missions, and lots of stuff that I want to go over in today's video. So strap in, buckle up, get your food ready. We're gonna break down this gameplay, but before we do so, make sure you hit that thumbs up button if you're ready for Marvel's Spider-Man 2. You guys are going crazy with the support. Let's keep it going and go for another 5,000 likes on today's video. And with that said, let's jump in now right away. Of course, before we got into the actual gameplay for Marvel Spider-Man 2, we first got a nice little bait and switch with that Kraven trailer. And what I think was really cool about that Kraven trailer is the way that, first of all, it starts out in this jungle and he's sort of teaching someone to try and hunt like how he does. But then it ends with him being handed this tablet and shown New York's concrete jungle as his new playground for this game. And while it's when he's handed that tablet that we can jump into this breakdown now, because one of the first things that we see in terms of a target that he can chase after is Black Cat, and she has a new design. Obviously, we don't see her head to toe, but it could hint that she's going to show up in the game. In fact, pretty much all the people that they show on this tablet could be in the game, because following Black Cat, we also see that Prowler is someone that Kraven can go after, and as well, Wraith. To catch you up to speed, Yuri Watanabe is someone that you might remember from the first Spider-Man game that Spider-Man works alongside in the police force. And in that City That Never Sleeps DLC expansion that we got from Marvel Spider-Man, she's sort of starting to delve into insanity after losing somebody, a member of her team. She's starting to go all vigilante on Hammerhead, and then towards the end of that DLC, we see that she's left the police force and she's gone rogue. And that's because in the comics, she actually becomes the not so good vigilante Wraith. And so I'm wondering how they're going to play that out in this game. And the design looks pretty sweet from the little bit that we got to see of it. Tombstone's also on the list, which is a little bit weird because in the side mission from the first game, I believe that you actually take his powers away from him. So I'm not sure what's going on there. But then we also have both the Spider-Man. That's an obvious one. And then it expands further into another portion of the city, a new explorable area, which we will get into in just a second. But we see that there's other targets there too. We got Lizard, who we didn't get to see a full-on look at just yet, but actually ends up being the one that Kraven is hunting at the start of the gameplay demo. And then very quickly towards the end of the look at that little tablet, you can see Taskmaster, and then also for a brief moment you can see Shocker. And Insomniac has an opportunity here to recreate one of the most iconic scenes from the animated series.
I'll chase you to the ends of the earth!
But then finally, on the left of the tablet, you can also see some raft inmates mentioned there, being Vulture, Rhino, Doc Ock, Electro, and Kingpin, but no mention of Mr. Negative. And then after that Kraven trailer, it was another bait and switch. I thought it was over. I thought we weren't going to get anything else, and I was really bummed out, but no, we jump into that gameplay demo, and we started off in Queens. And right when they show off Queens, you get a brief glimpse at Midtown High, which is the high school that Peter attended in the comics. After that, we pan over to somebody's house, who we all kind of assumed was maybe Peter's, and Kraven was hunting him. But as it turns out, through the PlayStation blog, it was confirmed that that's actually Dr. Curt Connors' house, and well, we see that Peter erupts out of the basement in his regular suit at first, and then transitions into the symbiote suit. Remember, back during the post-credit scene of Spider-Man Miles Morales, Curt Connors was revealed, and he was shown to be helping Norman Osborn with the treatment of Harry. So my best guess here is that Curt Connors had some of the symbiote locked away in his basement, and while Peter was trying to find him, he ended up finding the symbiote. Who knows? We'll have to wait and see, because when Spider-Man erupts out of that basement, it looks like he's pretty experienced with the symbiote already. So I'm wondering where exactly in the story he gets it, but it does seem as though this is early on. And also, as a side note, I love the symbiote suit in this game. I like what Insomniac is doing with it. I like that it almost looks like literal muscle tissue on top of Peter. I think that's awesome. It's very gross and unsettling and slimy, and it's moving in some areas. I think around the legs it loses me a little bit. I'm not a fan of the design down there, but for the most part, I think Insomniac did a good job. It's very alien-like, and I'm a big fan of the fact that he has just a classic black suit symbol on his chest, and he has the big white eyes. But okay, of course, after we see that symbiote suit reveal, we jump into actual gameplay. And now I wanted to break down a little bit the HUD that we see for Spider-Man 2. At the top left of the screen, we got the health bar, which is standard, and then underneath that is your combo counter, as well as your focus bars to build up and do takedowns. Then if we go over to the top right, you can see the currently selected gadget and how much of it you can use. Peter looks like he's just got his web shooters selected here, but it's at the bottom of the screen where things for the HUD are very different from what you might have remembered from the previous Spider-Man games. We have a wheel now tied to the L1 button, and I'm assuming pressing a face button in tandem with L1 will allow you to do some crazy symbiote special moves like what we saw in the gameplay. The cool part is, though, it looks like there's a wheel for your gadgets as well tied to the R1 button, and now I'm wondering if quickfire gadgets are going to become a thing in Marvel Spider-Man 2. I'm going to guess that you can customize what 4 special moves you want for your L1 button, and then what 4 gadgets you want tied to your R1 button. And then if you hold down R1 or maybe even hold down L1, you can see the full selection of things that you can use. We can see for Peter's gadgets, he has something selected that looks like a mine and then something that looks like a rocket. So in this game, he's pretty much ready to murder people. And then in terms of the gameplay itself with the symbiote suit, well, outside of the obvious stuff with the tendrils, there's a couple of new snippets there for gameplay. Firstly, Peter now looks like he's doing something that's akin to a down smash and bouncing people off the ground. And also, it seems like he can use the web strike with triangle to drag people across the floor and throw them to the left and the right. And then finally, of course, we see that Peter goes for that crazy wall kick combo and just completely pops off on that dude. Such overkill, but I love it. And then after that sweet look at the symbiote suit, we switch over to Miles now, and he's setting up for a slingshot. And the way that it looks like is that if there are 2 poles that are in the middle of a web perch, you can potentially have the option to then use those 2 poles as a slingshot. So I'm assuming we're going to see a lot of little bits like this around the city so that you can do the slingshot in multiple different areas. But right before Miles goes at Mach 10 down into the city to try and catch up to the lizard, you can actually see that there's civilians standing in their windows looking out at Spider-Man. I honestly thought that that was just a cool little addition now to the open world that just adds that little bit of extra realism to the city. We then transition into some of the combat for Miles Morales in the game, and you can see as well that he also has that same special move wheel and the gadget wheel, and he's got the same gadgets that Peter had equipped. Of course, for the HUD as well, Miles has the addition of the camouflage meter, as that's a new ability that he has available specifically to just him. At the end of his little combat section, Miles uses a Thunderburst special move, but you can see really quickly there that the enemy that was about to hit him was seemingly doing a move that can only be parried. Granted, if you have a special move ready, you can just use that as well, but parrying is something that's going to be very important in the gameplay for both Peter and Miles, as there are some moves from the enemies that cannot be dodged. While Miles is trying to continue tracking down the lizard, Peter enters the scene looking very menacing, and they're definitely hinting at something here that I'm going to get to in another video. But also, Miles points out that Peter's wearing a new suit, so this probably is a gameplay snippet that's from very early on in the game, or at the very least, very early on for when Peter gets the symbiote, which I find interesting considering how pissed off Peter already sounds. So he's really going through that descent of madness quickly. The lizard breaks out of the fish market and a chase ensues, which gives us a good look at the web swinging in this game, and you can tell that Miles is a lot less shaky this time around and swings with way more confidence. Some people don't like that Peter and Miles share some of the animations from the first game, but this is a sequel to the last 2 games, and there's not really going to be that much of a change in the way that they swing. There definitely will be for Miles as he hones in on his skills as Spider-Man, but Peter's been Spider-Man for 8 years already, so he knows his way around. A sequel to a game is meant to build on the foundation of the last one, and there is a rock solid foundation here already. What I'm most interested in seeing that they didn't show off at all is the air tricks and how that's going to apply to Peter now, and the ways that we're going to get unique animations from the web swinging through that. Because if you're just going from web swing to web swing in Miles Morales, you're going to see the same animations over and over and over again. To get true variety, it's when you use those air tricks and start to fool around with how that transitions into a web swing. Toss in there now the web wings as well, and there's going to be a lot of uniqueness to the traversal in this game that's going to be very different from the last 2. I promise you that much. And during this chase, Peter gets a bit too cocky and unfortunately gets caught by one of Kraven's missiles off the drones that he has, as it has a defense mechanism. But it's worth pointing out that it looks like Peter just kind of braces himself. He's ready to get hit, and the symbiote is the one that actually lessens the blow. So is this sort of hinting that they're starting to bond, that the symbiote's starting to take control of Peter here as it's making decisions on its own? I don't know, but that could be a subtle hint at exactly that. They land in the water at one point, and then Miles is surfing to try and get away from Lizard, and this is where we kind of get our first good look at the design for Lizard in the game. And I'm kind of bummed out he doesn't have the classic look. He doesn't have the lab coat. I mean, they hinted that he would in the first game from the Halloween party, so I'm bummed that we're not going to see that in this game. But I mean, nevertheless, it's a solid design. It looks like a giant lizard, so you really can't go wrong. There's another crazy sequence, some explosions, and alley-oop, jump, but then it turns out that the lizard got away as they tried to stop Kraven and his drones. Peter has to have a split-second decision on whether or not to continue chasing after the lizard or go and save a civilian that was about to be caught in the crossfire. He goes to save the civilian, and I think he's a little pissed off about it. He just sort of tosses the civilian to the ground and then turns around and gets the hell out of there. And you can actually see, even in the body language from Miles, that this was very unusual. Some really good mocap performances here where it's just specifically the body language of both Peter and Miles doing the talking. Peter's perched by the river, and you can hear him say he got away from us.
He got away from us.
Now, that could mean that he was just talking to Miles right before Miles landed next to him, but I think it means he's communicating with the symbiote. I mean, he said it very quietly and almost seemingly said it to himself. So again, you know, they're hinting that the bond is happening, that the symbiote is starting to take control of Peter here. The demo ends with Peter saying that he wants to track the lizard alone. Miles says, but he's got big teeth. And Peter says, so do I. And you can note there that Peter's eyes shift just ever so slightly and they look a little Venom-like. Again, I'm saving this for another video, so just make sure you subscribe to this channel so that I can keep you guys up to date on all the crazy theories and speculation that I'm gonna have for this game. But that pretty much wraps up the breakdown that I got for you guys here. Was there anything that I might have missed in this breakdown? If so, please let me know in the comment section below. And if there was something that you missed that I caught for you, well then make sure you hit that thumbs up button. I've been Caboose, and I'll see you guys later.